This is,
Ladies and gentlemen, is the Express. It is week 6. Well, you know what? We're almost done with week 6. We got 2 games tomorrow. Just got done with one now, but we got coffeeed up. Oh, other way. Coffeeed up Nate Polvote. Baja blasted up Kevin Tompkins. Nate, what's up, brother? How you doing?
okay, so I have to know though, is it the normal Baja Blast or is it that purple one that they've been rolling out at Taco Bell?
It's the normal one. I'm a purist. I
Fair
have had the
enough.
purple. I have had the purple one. It is a fine drink. It's not my. I had it once. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with like maybe not having it again. But
It was decent. So the kid wanted it, right? So we go to the Taco Bell by our house to get it. They're out of it except for the slushy version. And the slushy version, Kevin, that was fire. Like it was 10 out of 10 would recommend. I don't know about the regular, but here we are talking Mountain Dew. But it's week 6 of NFL action.
Yeah.
Weird week, crazy week. The Chiefs dominated the Lions week.
Yeah. Lots of stuff happened. We're certainly going to talk about it. A London game happened. A game that probably set the NFL back about 30 years.
It was, like you like to say, it was one of the games of all time, Kevin.
And it was one of the game. It was a game of all time, to put that kind of emphasis on it. Let's talk. You know what? In the style of Good Mythical Morning, let's talk about that.
Why not?
Broncos,
might as well.
Yeah, might as well. Broncos Jets 13-11. Amazingly, not a scoregami. That has happened twice. But we were on scoregami watch for some of that game. As a secret base, SB Nation scoregami enjoyer, enthusiast. But yeah, Broncos. That game was surprisingly not surprisingly okay. Unsurprising to anybody. Yeah.
Well, Broncos, if you watched the Start Sit show this morning, we referred to a lot of things, especially when it came to Carolina, surprisingly okay. To be fair, to get the reference for anyone who's watching or listening here.
Okay. See, I wasn't in on the reference, so that might. But you know what? Since you're the Broncos fan, and I'm sorry you had to deal with that, I'll let you set the table here with, you know, what transpired here, and then we can go into some of the fun stuff here.
So, essentially, what you need to know about this game was the Broncos won by default. Basically,
as Homer Simpson would say, the 2 sweetest words in the English language: default.
Yeah, and this is what it was. Denver won by default. They sacked Justin Fields like 400 times. It was really ugly on the Jets side. It was ugly on the Broncos side too. But Justin Fields and the Jets had negative net passing yards today, Kevin. Negative net passing yards. And as Denny Carter, the sage of fantasy football, put it, the Denver Broncos beat a team with negative net passing yards by 2 points today. They are a bad team.
Yeah, you could certainly say that. You know, this game did not shape any opinion of this speaker right now. I mean, the Broncos are probably like a fine NFL team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but I think they're just like fine. But the Jets are just an abomination. You know, with the Jets, you had 2 players with more than 1 target. Garrett Wilson, 8 targets, 3 for 13. Josh Reynolds, 3 for 25. Everybody else, we're talking 7 yards receiving besides Garrett Wilson and Josh Reynolds. We're not taking anything away, you know, we're not knocking Garrett Wilson down. He had the shadow coverage from one defensive player of the year, Pat Surtain.
Yep. Not
worried. Breece Hall, 22-59, whatever. Like, this is almost like this is the Men in Black memory eraser game. Just
Sure.
forget it like it ever happened, because I'm not gleaning anything from this. I still think Justin Fields in non-Denver Bronco Week 6 matchups is a perfectly fine fantasy quarterback. We're not putting him in the shadow realm just yet. Then on the Broncos side, I mean, there honestly really isn't anything to talk about. That's the only thing I will say with the Broncos. Obviously Courtland Sutton ran a ton of routes, 1 for 17 on 3 targets, whatever. Evan Ingram led the team, 5 targets, 542, but some of the talk here was like, is Evan Ingram back? And was he ever like, he was never startable to begin with. This morning, I put up a chart about the top 25 wide receivers in fantasy, and the routes run by them. The entire top 25 going into today all had route percentages of at least 60% or more. The only one that wasn't, Evan Ingram at 44.1%. So, you know what? No, you're not starting Evan Ingram. You can't. You need the guys to be on the field. And if they're like,
Right.
Dalton Kincaid is like the exception. And even he's pushing it at like 60% routes. That's like the absolute low marker you can get. And that doesn't feel comfortable. Like, you can't start a guy that runs 45% of routes. You just can't.
Well, Evan Ingram's a guy who we all had this idea, and we got the idea in our head that he was going to play this joker role in the Sean Payton offense, which is very attractive from a fantasy perspective, but it didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. And what I took away from this game, Kevin, was it was an early morning overseas game. These games are always weird. I don't think you can take a lot from them because you have players dealing with jet lag, and they're in a completely different environment than they're used to. These aren't NFL stadiums; they're soccer stadiums.
Right. And the Broncos did everything right, though. As far as they left that game, well, they left for London right after that, like hours after that Eagles game. That that is one thing where if you're gonna try to manage the jet lag and being in it for your body clock, that's the way to do it. Just go and deal with it all week rather than head there Tuesday night or Wednesday, and then you're still kind of dealing with the effects. So
that's
on that aspect, they did it right. But still, that's why these international games are awful for fantasy, where it's really hard. I mean, you're going to start these guys, but it's really difficult to. And now we got, was it Rams and Jaguars next week, where plenty of fantasy relevant players there. I mean, you had your Bronco, you had a couple Broncos. Obviously, you're starting Courtland Sutton, you're starting J.K. Dobbins, obviously, and then Garrett Wilson. But you have probably double that with the Rams and Jaguars that you're decently comfortable starting. So that's really going to be a big, we're probably going to be talking about this time next week, hating it.
More than likely. Let's move on to the next game, Kevin. We're going to hate this one too. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Cleveland Browns 23-9. Look, I watched way more of this game than I wanted to watch. I'm not going to lie. It was ugly. It was a slugfest. Aaron Rodgers had the best QB rating, 115.3, though. I mean, if you watched the game, you would have never believed he played that well. What did you take away from this game, Kevin, other than these are two offenses that are struggling? They're two defenses that are struggling. They're two franchises that are, I mean, if we're being honest, they're both at kind of a crossroads, and it was an ugly game.
Like starting with the Steelers stuff, I mean, DK Metcalf is far and away, as far as like a relevant pass catcher. You're not starting any of the tight ends. I mean, Darnell Washington went 3 for 62, was literally the second target next to DK Metcalf. Other than Metcalf, you can't really trust anybody else in this offense. Another thing is that with Jalen Warren back, Kenny Gainwell is still plenty involved. 12 touches, 6 targets. 13 touches for Jalen Warren. So I think we're in probably more of a split than we want to. And it sucks because, we all thought Jalen Warren is actually going to get some opportunity here to be like the lone guy in Pittsburgh without Najee Harris. You had to kind of deal with Caleb Johnson, but the call was coming from inside the house all the time when Kenny Gainwell is out here taking 40% of the routes and 35% of the snaps. So that's going to be, I mean, it's to the point where you could probably roster Gainwell. I don't know if I feel comfortable starting him, but like he's at least shown that if something does happen to Jalen Warren or re-aggravate something, that he can be started. Obviously, he had that game in London a couple weeks ago. There really isn't much on the Pittsburgh side, but like on the Cleveland side, David Njoku got hurt, didn't play a lot of the second half. So Harold Fannin ended up seeing the most routes and snaps he has all season, 10 targets, 7 for 81. So watch the Njoku stuff, like a hawk, because Harold Fannin becomes a top 7, top 6 tight end without David Njoku there. Like Blake Whiteheart ain't coming in on, it's going to be more like the Falcons, where you have your Charlie Warner and Blake Whiteheart that is not a receiving threat. He's a pure blocking tight end. And then you have Fannin, who is basically the Pitts, where he is going to be moved around as the, lone tight end there as far as a receiving threat. Jerry Jeudy I don't even know if I want to. You can't release him. Like you can't put him in, put him on waivers. But like, because 13 targets is 13 targets, but you can't start him. Like 5 for 43.
Right.
The intent is there, getting him downfield, 134 air yards today. But it's very obvious by looking at Dylan Gabriel that he targets tight ends. So that's another feather for Harold Fannin in terms of what we like to see in the Browns offense. And then, Quinshot Judkins was due to have kind of a dud game, 12 for 36, but still leading the backfield. Any more thoughts here? Because Harold Fannin would be, if there, for some reason he is out there in a league, he needs to be 100% rostered.
Oh, he 100% he needs to be rostered. He's this team's slot receiver, and we've been telling you this for weeks that he's going to be involved. I want to throw this comment out here from Myth Carrion. That's Lou Brunson. Check him out, Brewpython 27 on Blue Sky. Part of our awesome team here. Jerry Jeudy is the worst wide receiver one in the NFL, folks, and he's not wrong. It feels at times like Jerry Jeudy just doesn't want to be on the field. I mean, is that a fair statement?
I mean, I think he was carried a lot more by the Jameis Winston stuff at the end of last year than people want to admit. People thinking that the issue in Denver was him for not, earning targets, or at least earning more targets to justify his draft slot, where you had, obviously Russell Wilson and you had quarterback stuff there, but guys that couldn't get him the ball. Maybe the problem was Jeudy all along, because outside of the Jameis Winston, like forced pass stuff, he really has not, he's 13 targets is fine, but like this is a clear and obvious like disconnect with Jerry Jeudy. And this is going back to Flacco. This isn't like something new. This is like these problems still persist with Jerry Jeudy. So the problem is probably Jeudy. No one else in this offense, because they've had, Cedric Tillman's been hurt. Nobody else is really going to be able to take that mantle, but like Harold Fannin. And obviously we just went over, Dylan Gabriel loves targeting tight ends, 16 targets to the position today. You're looking at like a rate of probably, what's that, like 40%, which would be close to the top of the league in terms of target distribution to the position. So that's really what you want to target here, is that you're downgrading Jeudy and with Dylan Gabriel, but you're upping. I mean, Njoku and Fannin were startable. Now, obviously, with Njoku's injury, we'll see what that does in terms of if that's going to be a lingering thing. Like Fannin just shoots to the top of like the top half of tight ends you need to be starting.
Yep. Oh, we've been on this. He's involved in this offense, and it's not a good offense. We know this, but this is notable, and I want to throw this out here from the chat here. 52 passing attempts from Dylan Gabriel today. Like, this is a team that, in spite of the fact they have Quinshon Judkins, apparently they're going to throw the ball enough where guys like Harold Fannin are 100% fantasy relevant, Kevin.
Yeah, 4.3 yards per attempt is like not good. He only had 221 yards on those 52 attempts, But like, yeah, like you can't look at, you got to take the 52 pass attempts and like see what he's doing with them. Obviously, Judy had a bunch
Sure.
of targets that were inefficient, and then obviously he's targeting Fannin. Like, we're just gonna beat you over the head with this stuff until people are starting Harold Fannin, because he is a guy at a thin position, at a position we're all begging and pleading for consistent production. This is a guy that can like lead you to championships.
Yes. Well, the consistency, like you said. Let's move on to the next matchup, Kevin. We're going to go over to the Chargers against the Miami Dolphins. The Chargers narrowly winning this matchup, which I'm going to be honest, completely unexpected on my end here. 29-27 in Miami. What was your biggest takeaway from this game, Kevin? I mean, I really thought that the Chargers were going to run away with this, win by 15 to 20 points. They just didn't do it, couldn't do it.
The death of Lad McConkey is greatly exaggerated. Obviously, they did not have Quentin Johnston. But look, Lad McConkey, 7 for 100 and a touchdown. Keenan Allen was the other part of that, that trio. Obviously, no QJ, but 4 for 27 on 6 targets. But Aronda Gadsden, man, 7 for 68. That could be, or not to the point of like Harold Fannin, but a guy that was a wide receiver in college at Syracuse, was a legacy. His father played for the Dolphins in the 90s. Like, we're talking about NFL bloodline that was a wide receiver in college, now playing tight end. Like, this is the profile you want in a tight end. And he ran 82% of routes today, 75% of the snaps, both season highs, sent Tyler Conklin to the shadow realm. He played 3 snaps today total. Will Dissly still played a little bit. Tucker Fisk was complete. He's a blocking tight end, so he's never going to factor in the receiving game. They are rolling out the red carpet for Aronda Gadsden, and it certainly helps to have QJ not play so he can like be featured more. And obviously, when the 3 wide receivers are healthy, Aronda Gadsden is probably no better than the 3rd target and more likely the 4th, but he's still a profile that you want in an offense that's going to be passing a ton. Yeah, I would say Aronda Gadsden is probably a must add this week, certainly in fantasy. And then who saw Kamani Vidal? 18 for 124. All the talk was on Hassan Haskins.
Yep.
Turns out Kamani Vidal, 67% of snaps, 56% of the routes, had 4 targets as well. 138 total yards. I mean, if for people that did not believe, which, look, this is a backfield you had no idea about, and you were adding the pieces. And I would say more people were adding Hassan Haskins than Kamani Vidal. Vidal, for whatever reason, if he's still there in the leagues, like this is going to be a good week for waiver wire as far as like picking up, productive and long-term plays. Like, I think Vidal can certainly be that for at least the next few weeks with Marion Hampton on the shelf. So yeah, go get Kamani Vidal as well, because the role is strong. It's one thing if he was splitting like the role with Hassan Haskins, like right down the middle. Right. But Vidal was completely, overshadowed Haskins. Haskins only had 7 touches for 23 yards.
Yeah, I'm upset that I got talked off of Kamani Vidal this week, because coming into the week, knowing what was going on with Hampton, I was really big on him. I got talked into Hassan Haskins as the guy who's done it before, very much the Michael Carter narrative that we were fed last week, which did play out last week, not so much this week. But what I think is interesting, and I want to talk about this real quick, this is in relation to this game and the situation with Vidal, with Omari and Hampton. We're hearing now that it's likely that he's going to miss more time than just the 4 weeks on IR. Do you think this turns into a thing where if the Chargers aren't in contention when Hampton is healthy and ready to come back, if they're getting efficient play out of Vidal and Haskins, are we done with Hampton for the season?
No. We're no. He was a 1st round pick. There's so much, investment in Like, you don't pine box a guy like Hampton, even though he's probably gonna maybe need a ramp up, for like a week or so. But yeah, it's probably gonna be where like Hampton comes back and is completely. He will send Hassan Haskins to zero his first week back. I will say that. Vidal
Yes.
probably keeps a roll, and then eventually you're gonna see like a little bit of flippening. Well, you probably see Vidal and Hampton is like 55-45, and then you see Hampton 65-35, and then we're probably back to where we were pre-injury with Hampton. I don't think we're not sending Hampton to zero just because Kamani. I mean, we got to see the Rico Dowdling of Kamani Vidal for more than 1 week before we put Hampton in Hangar 51 at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So let's just get this out of the way here, Kevin. Do you think we can see more of a Vidal Hampton split akin to the Hampton Harris split?
Probably, I would say Vidal's a better player than Najee Harris in terms of like efficiency, and probably offers more in the receiving game.
Yep.
But everything high value touch wise, outside of like Vidal's random receptions, that's all going to go to Hampton. The Chargers were one of the best teams in the league in terms of high value touches, green zone stuff, receptions. The Chargers were one of the best teams over, the first 4 weeks of the season, and Hampton was obviously a huge part of that. So, I don't see that split being like where it's because Harris was taking like 30% of the snaps still, but he was getting a lot of, when he was in, you knew he was getting the ball. I don't think you're going to quite get that with Vidal. I think you're still with Hampton in terms of like seeing Vidal saw 72% of the team rushing attempts today. That's what you saw out of Hampton. So I think that's what you see if you're talking about a split between Hampton and Vidal. But at least for right now, with Vidal and Haskins, I'm not saying like cement this kind of like split, but I would be very surprised if it like went meaningfully the other way, where it's more of a 50-50.
Sure. All right, Kevin, let's move on to the Dolphins side of this, where the trend of wide receivers throwing passes continues. Jalen Waddle completes a pass for 8 yards. I would like to say that that's more successful than what Tua did today. He went 21-32 for 205, 1 touchdown, but 3 interceptions. The problems persist here. Jalen Waddle, however, does get 6 catches for 95 yards. He leads the team with 8 targets. Kevin, what do we think about this Miami team today and moving forward?
It's the same as it always is. Condensed offense, you know where the ball is going. And that's the one thing you do love about Mike McDaniel, is that he makes no bones about, hey, we have a football and we're going to get it to the guys that deserve the football, that are going to be productive with it. That is Jalen Waddle, that is Devon Achane, that is Darren Waller. Where you have guys that'll maybe mix in, you get some manufactured stuff with Malik Washington, and this is going to be the role for Malik Washington. We thought with the Tyreek Hill stuff that Malik Washington would be used maybe a little bit more outside of like the design stuff, but he's been just pigeonholed into being a slot guy, being like 50% of routes. So, we saw Nick Westbrook Akine 1 target. He is the literal definition of Matt Harmon's sacrificial X receiver. But yeah, Darren Waller, another uptick in his routes up to 78%, and he scored a touchdown. It wasn't a very good day volume wise, 2 for 12, but ended up getting a touchdown to kind of salvage the day. And Devon Achane, 6 targets, 4 for 22, but 16 carries, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, 76% of the team rushing attempts. I mean, you should not have questions about Devon Achane at this point. But yeah, in terms of like any of the other secondary guys, they don't matter in this particular offense. It's Waddle, Waller, Achane, start them all. And you can kind of forget about the other guys, even Washington, who I did pick up and will probably end up dropping.
I mean, if you're in a deeper league and Washington's not a bad pickup, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we know what this offense is. It's very condensed down to these 3 players with Darren Waller pitching in here and there when he sees volume. But at the tight end position, what he is seeing is fairly valuable. I mean, he's a guy who's a fringe tight end 1-tier player with the little bit that he's seeing, especially if he scores any given week, like he becomes an asset. But I've had enough of this game. This was just a terrible, terrible game. There were a lot.
Enough.
I had enough, Kevin. We're going to move on to also not a pretty game. New Orleans versus New England. The battle of the news, and both were terrible. They're both very old teams. It feels like old feel, uniforms, personnel, the way that they play the game. New England wins this one though, 25-19 against the Spencer Rattler-led Saints. Taysom Hill was back this week. I kind of thought that was going to be a little bit more exciting than it was. He didn't do much, though I did start him, Kevin. What did you get out of this matchup? Is there anything exciting about it? Anything to take from it that we didn't know other than, I mean, Drake May is apparently an elite quarterback.
I would say the MVP of the league after 6 weeks. I know you want to anoint Baker Mayfield as the MVP of the league, but I'm sorry, it's Mr. Drake May. I will not hear any questions. Do you have any questions?
I don't. And it's funny, before this, I was browsing through our tools, just looking at some stats and kind of breaking down the day. And Drake May is just playing at an elite level right now. And the win-loss column doesn't necessarily show it. New England's results don't show it, but Drake May is playing so incredibly well. Passer rating wise, completion percentage, just what he's doing on the field. This kid is good.
The fact that he's doing this with the ghost, speaking of a guy that deserves to be in a pine box, Demario Douglas scored a touchdown today. Kayshon Boutte in his return, by the way, to New Orleans, 2 touchdowns, 5 for 93. Shout out to John and Pemba, by the way, a fantasy alarm for being massively in on Kayshon Boutte in terms of like DFS play, because he called that and nobody else was really on that. So we love our narrative street more than anybody.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had the Dan Campbell, David Montgomery stuff last weekend. The one that was kind of under the radar was outside of like the Rico Dowdle stuff was Kayshon Boutte. Coming back to where he played at LSU. But yeah, the fact that Drake May is doing what he's doing with, a 31-year-old Stephon Diggs, a bunch of like nothing wide receivers, an old tight end, is nothing short of amazing with no run game, by the way. Ramondre Stevenson sees, I think, the most snaps he has all season. Of course he does. 72%, 58% of routes, 14 opportunities today for just 18 yards. Trevion Henderson, 11 opportunities for just 36 yards. We got to be hands off of this running game at this point. There is no winners, only losers. And if you're holding Trevion Henderson, and I understand, I am amongst you that are holding Trevion Henderson. You just got to hold him on the bench, and until you get like the clear signal from Vrabel, you get the all go button from him. But other than that, not too much on the New England side. And on the Saints side, it was nice to see Chris Olave get downfield. We would see him do his best, Jacoby Olave impression the last first 5 weeks of the season. He actually gets downfield today, 12.1 yard ADOT, 121 air yards, another 10 targets. That's 5 of 6 games with double-digit targets, by the way, for Chris Olave. 6 for 98, good day. Rashid Shaheed disappointed, 4 for 28. Juwan Johnson clearly still banged up. Kamara got a little more run in the receiving game, 5 for 45, but still 10 for 31. You have to start him, but it never feels good. It hasn't felt good all season. So that kind of stinks. And you got your Taysom Hill touchdown, which, cool. Yeah, that's awesome for you. Underdog best ballers that drafted in the 18th round.
Well, yeah, that's the only people who are starting him. There's the only people who are rostering him at this point, Kevin.
No, that's a falsehood. I have him in our guillotine, the one you got chopped in. Sorry to remind you.
No, I'm fine getting chopped, and just don't
I'm
get me
leading the
started about the whole
charge in that league, by the way. I'm gonna win that
Good.
league. You
You
know I got
freaking better.
You know I got Jonathan Taylor now, right?
No. Ooh.
I added
Oh.
I added
Ooh.
Taylor to Devon Achane, Drake May, George Pickens. We're
Good.
cooking with gas.
Dude, destroy all those Reddit normies. I love all of you guys, and if you're watching this show, we appreciate you very much.
We
We just
do.
we like winning. That's all.
We do.
Speaking of winning, I don't think this game was it this week. It was fine. It was cool to see Taysom Hill back. I will say that much. And it's not from a fantasy standpoint, just from a fun standpoint. He's a fun player. He's like the Lloyd McClendon of the NFL. If you're old enough to know who Lloyd McClendon is, Kevin, you come on, man.
Of course I do. The guy who got
Okay.
ejected and took the base with him into the clubhouse.
Yeah, but he was also a utility player for the Pirates and the Cubs and the Cardinals for a while.
Long time ago. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, no, we were in diapers back then, man.
We were tots for sure.
We were tots.
We did not have
sure.
gray beards at that time.
Oh God, no, we did not. All right, we're going to move on to the next matchup, Kevin, because I'm bored of this one as well. We're going to move on to the LA Rams beating up ish on the Baltimore Ravens pathetic defense, 17-3 this Sunday. I'm going to be honest, Kevin. I thought this was going to be more of an offensive display on the Rams side. It just didn't materialize. However, they still end up winning the game. What were your takeaways from this? I mean, obviously, Baltimore gets 3 points with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Not surprising. Was there anything on the Rams side besides the Puka Nacua injury that concerns you about their production, or is that why they were so stunted? Was it because of the Puka injury?
I mean, the thing with the Rams is like the personnel wise, you are very condensed. This is the leader of the clubhouse of like condensed offenses. When you talk about Sean McVay and then, some of his assistants that have gone to be head coaches, Kevin O'Connell, Zach Taylor, Zach Robinson, the Atlanta offensive coordinator, who was a Rams staffer, quarterback coach, passing coordinator for a few years. All share the same traits about like very condensed personnel. They lost Puka Nacua to an ankle injury on a red zone target. He ended up coming back into the game, but clearly was not the same. So for that, we're going to have to see it. I would not be surprised if they held him out next week in London, because I believe the Rams have their bye the next week. So I wouldn't be shocked if they're like, all right, let's kind of put him on ice and get him a couple weeks to recover. For that, I would be very highly targeting Jordan Whittington on waivers if you need a wide receiver. He basically ran all of Puka's routes after that. 92%, 93% of the snaps, 86% of the routes next to Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is fine. He got 9 targets, just 4 for 39 on those, though. Tyler Higbee ended up getting in the end zone. Connor Williams had a touchdown. Like, it was not sexy by any means for the Rams, but they just got it done. But that's like the one thing you can kind of glean off of the Rams is that obviously Puka was out, but Jordan Whittington is the guy that you want in terms of a guy that's going to be running pretty much every route. And then on the Baltimore side, Zay Flowers, 6 for 46. Tyler Huntley ended up coming into this game as well for Cooper Rush. And outside of that, you're looking at just very, very meager opportunity here for all of these Ravens. 4 for 24 for Mark Andrews, 5 for 20 for Justice Hill ended up coming in. Obviously, in a game script like this, Derrick Henry, 24 for 122. It was still a 2-touchdown game. So, Jordan is obviously as plugged in as it gets, especially with Ram stuff. But yeah, Jordan Whittington, he's the guy you absolutely need on waivers if you're looking for a guy that's going to be running a ton of routes. But yeah, even in a game script like this where they only lost by 14 points, Derrick Henry 24 for 122. It's not like he's like completely dead. But games like this where the Ravens they're on quarterback 3 now, hoping they can get Lamar back, but when they're 1-5, the game scripting of Derrick Henry rears its ugly head. But at least it was nice to see him get productive here.
Yeah, I mean, the Derrick Henry's dead narrative is tired. This is a team that isn't playing well. Like you said, they're 1-5. You're gonna see these struggles. He's gonna be fine. I feel like Derrick Henry's in that like streaky territory for most of the rest of this season because we just don't know what we're going to get out of this offense. But Kevin, let's move on to the next matchup from this Sunday. We've got the Indianapolis Colts defeating the Arizona Cardinals 31-27. My apologies. Much closer than I think most of us thought this was going to be, especially without Kyler Murray. Jacoby Brissett filled in fairly admirably, but I think the story here is that Jonathan Taylor just keeps it going. Kevin, is he the clear consensus, without a doubt, rest of season RB1 in your rankings?
Not clear, but he has been the most consistent. And I would, you got to throw Bijan in there too, because
sure,
even in game scripts where it's not super conducive to like getting Bijan work on the ground, he's still going to put up 100 yards receiving. So he has multiple avenues to getting there. I don't think Jonathan Taylor has like that avenue, but what he does have is the offensive environment to be able to just absolutely crush almost every single week. And the Colts are going to be in games. Like they're probably, I mean, I don't know if I'd say they're the best team in the AFC, but if they are not, they're in the top 2 or 3, at least now.
Yeah. I was going to say they're up there.
Yeah, if they're not the best, they're certainly in the conversation. But like the offensive environment wise, like it could not be better for a guy like Jonathan Taylor, where you don't have to worry about him getting game scripted out of all these games. Josh Downs, 6 for 42, ended up catching a touchdown in the second half. Michael Pittman down game, 2 for 20. Adonai Mitchell out, so you had Alec Pierce coming back, 2 for 48. That's fine. Tyler Warren leads the team in targets, 9 targets, 6 for 63, and a touchdown, is like one of the beacons of light in an otherwise dim tight end position in fantasy. So he's been one of the most consistent players, certainly. So for that, like he's a top 3, top 4 tight end rest of the season. Outside of that, going over to Arizona, look, you get an adult in the room, you get an adult throwing passes like Jacoby Brissett. That, if I had to vote on a platform, if it's the Trey McBride touchdown platform, like my vote is in. I am voting for Jacoby Brissett in 2026. Because look, 8%, it's all about these backup quarterbacks that they know where to get the ball. They know who to throw the ball to. They have a plan. They have the savvy, the know-how, the stuff that you can't quantify, in any of my spreadsheets to direct an offense, to be capable to manage it effectively. And Jacoby Brissett, year in, year out, is one of those guys that can do that. The fact that, Marvin Harrison ended up leaving the game as well. So that was a big shot. And Zay Jones ended up running a ton of routes today, 5 for 79, 107 air yards, 7 targets. And then obviously we talked about Trey McBride, 8 for 72 and a touchdown on team leading 10 targets. But look, one other thing here, the running back thing with Adam Schefter saying before the game, Bam Knight was going to be the starter. I don't think anybody really told Michael Carter that, because Michael Carter still, he didn't get a touchdown, but 64 total yards, 13 touches. Bam Knight ended up plunging in a touchdown, but was still pretty inefficient. So I'm still leaning Carter in this backfield. I don't know about you. And Bam Knight still had like the snap edge on Carter, but
sure.
I mean, Carter does, the receiving stuff fairly well. The rushing stuff is like fine, but Bam Knight's not really an option in the receiving game. So that's kind of where my tiebreaker goes there.
My interest in this backfield until Trey Benson comes back is 0.
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely 0. But
I think if I had to pick one of the two, I'm gonna go Bam Knight because there's the explosive play possibility with him that I don't think necessarily exists with Michael Carter, because they don't put him in those situations to have those explosive plays, where it seems like today they put Bam Knight in that position. But if I have a choice, please God, Kevin, don't make me. I really don't want to have to. But yeah, and I think something that we could take away from this game, and I'm glad you said it before I did, when you got a big boy in the room throwing passes, it changes the way your offense looks. And this offense looked more cohesive and more put together than it does with Kyler Murray behind center. I don't know what that means for this team long term. I don't know if anybody else besides you and me saw it, but it was something I think that is notable moving forward with this offense. When we remember that as soon as Kyler Murray is healthy, it's Kyler Murray's offense. And what does that mean moving forward versus what we saw today?
That, you know what it means? It means they go back to the most underachieving team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That has basically been the Cardinals. Like, you look at what they did, their absolute meltdown. By the way, Amari DiMercato absolutely banished the shadow realm today. I believe he only had, pulling it up today, I think it was only like 3 snaps in total for him. I'm pulling it up right now.
It wasn't
Sorry,
good.
that's 3 snaps, 1 route for Amari DiMercato. So you can pretty much forget about him going forward if you don't have him, or if you have him, drop him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so look,
completely.
yeah, and we'll talk. I have a kind of a fun little comparison with the Cardinals, and I'll talk about that when we get to that particular game. But we could, if you don't have anything else, we can move on to other games.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Seattle-Jacksonville game. Seattle victorious over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think anybody's super shocked by this one. 20-12. Jaguars now fall to 4-2. Maybe we can start talking about how they're not that good of a team, even though they were 4-1 and now 4-2. But I digress. Let's talk about the Seattle side of this first, Kevin. We've got Sam Darnold, 16 for 27, 295, and 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Walker, 10 for 34. Zach Charbonnet, 12 for 24 in the running game. Almost even split. Both very inefficient. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, 8 catches, 162 yards and a touchdown. That is the big story, at least on the Seattle side of this game, Kevin.
Nobody should be shocked at what JSN is doing right now. Just, JSN. At one point, we're talking about, like, in the third quarter, there was literally 2 players that were targeted. And it was JSN, who had already had over 100 yards at that point. I believe the other one was, I want to say it was Charbonnet, but yeah, JSN is this offense. Cooper Kupp ended up getting in the end zone too. Kind of a sneaky thing here, though. AJ Barner ended up seeing a season high. I believe a season high. I'm pulling it up right now. AJ Barner, well, close to it. Because he's been at roughly 80% of snaps almost all season. But his second highest route percentage of the season. But at the expense of that was Elijah Arroyo kind of coming down a little bit. So I'm not here to anoint AJ Barner, who I famously did say had Dalton Kincaid syndrome, where he had the some of the production, but not a lot of the routes, with not a big path to more routes. I don't think we're like quite there with AJ Barner, but that's like an interesting thing where they're really starting to prioritize him over kind of the Arroyo, at least for this season. So I think that's something to monitor. We're not in like start AJ Barner territory, but he's mildly interesting to where if this is a trend that continues, he could potentially be the second target in this offense. Like, I don't think Cooper Kupp is super long for consistent production. He had a touchdown, whatever. Like, he's like a very boring flex option. Torrey Horton, you wanted to see more out of him. Only had a target, no catches on just 66% of routes. But yeah, Barner's interesting there. The running game did nothing for anybody. 10 for 34 for Walker, 12 for 24 for Charbonnet. No touchdowns there. I wanted this game to be better. Between I feel like that could have been a shootout, and that game disappointed because I played a huge swath of this game in DFS on the Darnold and on the JSN side. And then over the Jaguars side, like, if you were worried about Brian Thomas, you know, you got your wish. 8 for 90, a touchdown, 10 targets. Like, set and forget Brian Thomas at this point. That's where we're at. 83% or 84% of routes. Nothing much in the passing game for anybody else, really. It was just Brian Thomas and a few guys getting, you know, a handful of targets here and there. Running game wasn't very effective either. Yeah, it was a very defensive-minded game because, you know, Jacksonville came into this surprisingly 6th in defensive EPA per game. And then Seattle, I believe, was 8th. So this is like one of those sneaky defensive games where Seattle has been one of the most explosive offenses in terms of like getting balls downfield. And JSN is obviously a massive part of that. But it was kind of, they both kind of hit the wall today a bit. Because the Jaguars have been sneakily, you know, explosive in their own, you know, especially in the run game with ETN. And also, Travis Hunter saw the most routes he's seen all season, but it doesn't matter. 4 for 15 on just a 4.1 yard ADOT. Like, they're using him at the line of scrimmage. I don't get it. I just honestly don't get how they're using him right now. So you can't start him at any means. He's barely rosterable right now, let alone starting him.
Okay, I said it before the season started. I'm going to repeat it one more time. Travis Hunter was always going to fade away on offense. It just felt natural to me. And I think back to Charles Woodson, and maybe not a fair comparison, but now it's starting to feel more fair. And the Raiders had every intention of using him on both sides of the ball when they drafted him first overall. It just didn't work out. And they figured it out about 8 games into the season, his rookie season, where it just, okay, this isn't going to work. But he's so good in the secondary, we're going to move him to full-time secondary. Obviously, Hall of Fame plus the kick returner work. I feel like that's where we're headed with Travis Hunter, because on the defensive side of the ball, he's far more valuable, and we've already seen his value, which makes me worry on the offensive side that we were chasing a red herring, Kevin. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like at this point.
Well, a lot of that stuff was, especially like in like drafts, a lot of that was, you know, his defensive stuff and what he would, that was baked into the price. So I think that was like a totally fine pick to make. Yeah, and you can have all the, you know, the questions about Trevor Lawrence and all that. But yeah, this is an offense that desperately needs a second target. Obviously losing Brenton Strange, they had to kind of fill in the gaps with Hunter Long. That doesn't help anything. But yeah, when you have Travis Hunter and using him in that way where he is clearly just a rotate. I mean, I shouldn't even say a rotational piece because he's running 86% of the routes, but he's clearly not productive on it. And you're not using him like 4.1 ADOT. You're using him like basically like Pittsburgh Juju Smith-Schuster. So it's like, but like the later years, like Saved by the Bell,
yes.
when Screech is the principal. That's where we're at. The Saved by the Bell, the later years.
That's a great. I love that pull.
But yeah, like you can't start Travis Hunter. You can barely roster at this point unless you see like a big role change. And it's crazy because the other 3 wide receivers, De'Ami Brown, Tim Patrick had a touchdown today.
Yep.
16.8 yard ADOT for De'Ami Brown, 17 yard ADOT for Tim Patrick, 17.5 yard ADOT for Parker Washington. That's where you should be using a guy like Hunter deep. Let him win matchups one-on-one. He won the freaking Heisman, dude. Like, you drafted him, you traded picks to get him second overall, and you're using him like yeah, late stage Pittsburgh Juju Smith-Schuster with like a 3-4 yard ADOT. I don't get it, but
if they were using him more often on the defensive side of the ball, I might probably understand it more, but he's getting limited use on both sides. So, I mean, I'm with you. I don't understand it.
Be a corner, be a corner, make your money, go home and be a family man, as Guile would once say from Street Fighter. Just be a corner and make your money, bro.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to move on, Kevin. We're going to move on to the Carolina Panthers defeating the Dallas Cowboys. This one makes me chuckle. 30-27.
Yeah.
In Carolina, let's start on the Dallas side of this one. Dak Prescott goes 25 for 34, 261, 3 touchdowns. Javonte Williams disappointing for the first time, 13 carries for 29 yards, does not manage a touchdown. He does catch all 5 of his targets for a grand total of 5 yards. Not super impressive here. However, George Pickens, this is the big story, I do believe. 9 catches for 168. He shows his athleticism. He gets a touchdown along with Jake Ferguson. George Pickens' season is here, Kevin.
Until CeeDee Lamb comes back.
Yep.
So I would even. So trust me, you will find no bigger fan of like George Pickens, the football player, than yours truly. But now could be the time where CeeDee Lamb is coming back. You want to trade George Pickens for something that you need. Now's the time to do it. Do it this week. Yeah, 9 for 168, a touchdown. Dude was holding the X button. Dude was jumping all over the place, and I don't understand why he was trying to jump over dudes and hurdle dudes. I don't know what that was all about. If that dude got into some, fun dip or whatever, but
too many smelling salts.
Maybe he got into what Pablo Torre and Mina Kimes were into on the latest episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out. Great show. You should go check that out, but not right now. Yeah, and then Jake Ferguson gets into gets a touchdown, salvages his day, 3 for 33, catches all 3 targets and scores a touchdown. My boy, boots on the ground in Fargo, Hunter Lipke with a touchdown as well.
Yeah,
that was nice to see. But yeah, Javonte was due for a dud game. Certainly, I don't think that diminishes anything he's done. Still a massively strong role, 86% of snaps, 77% of routes, 68% of the team rushing attempts. Start him if you got him. He's still awesome. He's not like taking a downgrade by any means. And then Carolina, look, is Rico Dowdle just like the most generational running back we're ever going to see? Because the last 2 weeks is whatever. Like, it defies any sort of logic and reasoning.
Is this what it felt like to be alive when Walter Payton was in his prime, Kevin?
Yeah. Well, look, it's like the combination of like Walter Payton and Jim Brown and Eric Dickerson and Fergie and Jesus all rolled into one.
I love that you threw Fergie into that one. Good Lord, man.
Yeah, man. Look, it's the Rico Dowdle train. You got to, piss or get off the pot.
Well, I'm going to get off the pot because I am not here for this.
Yeah, I mean, Rico Dowdle's on it because he can't. I don't know if he can get any higher. 30 for 183, 4 for 56 through the air and a touchdown. Like, that dude's flying in the clouds, man, right now.
Well, look, I failed to factor in the revenge game narrative this week against Dallas. I did not understand how pissed off he was and how poorly he was treated in Dallas, and I get it. If I had known more of that when we were doing the Start Sit show and I had watched the stupid piece on NFL Network before doing all that, and realizing how poorly Dallas treated him, I get it, man. And after his blow-up week last week to come into Dallas against what is already a piss-poor run defense, of course this was always going to happen. Don't expect it's not going to continue. He is Walter Payton, if only for a moment.
Yeah.
Per you, too.
And by the way, 2 straight games with 200 scrimmage yards. That's been only done one other time in the last 5 years. Dalvin Cook was the last player to have 200 scrimmage yards in back-to-back games since 2020. So,
I mean, to be fair, they got the Jets next week. If Chuba's out next week, maybe one more little encore performance from Rico against the Jets.
Yeah, you're gonna have to miss me with the 200 talk. He's probably gonna be I can't even say, like, DFS wise, I forget what his salary was. He was probably like 5,700. That dude's probably gonna be up to like 6,500.
I think he was 58. I want to say he was 58.
Yeah,
we talked about him in our DFS show.
Yeah, he wasn't up to 6K, but he'll be well. I think he'll be well over that next week. He'll
I
probably be
wouldn't.
because because DK is DK. They're slow to the take on raising salary, but I don't think they're going to miss this one.
You can't. It'll lose them money if they do. You don't want that.
No, the big bet. You don't want that happening.
No. Let's go to the Carolina side of this one outside of Rico Dowdle. I don't think there's too much to talk about. Tied for the team lead in receptions. He was also tied for the team lead in targets. Tet McMillan having 4, Rico Dowdle also having 4. Tet did have the 2 touchdowns, though, today. Little Tet mini breakout. You love to see that at least.
Yeah, a little Tet offensive. Yeah, 17.9 fantasy points, wide receiver 10, entering the Sunday night football game. So, yeah, you definitely love to see it. Even though, some of the, actual target earning didn't really come. When you have a guy like Rico Dowdle that you could apparently give him 30 carries, 34 opportunities for, 229 yards, 239 yards.
Yeah.
You just got to ride that wave. But the fact that Tet McMillan still got in the end zone twice, and then obviously Rico Dowdle got his too in the end zone. You'll love to see it. But good for McMillan to at least get in the end zone twice on very limited. 3 for 29.
Well, that's what good receivers do. They put themselves in positions to score points. And for us, it's important they score fantasy points. For them, they get the touchdowns, and the 2 touchdowns for him, fantastic. Right now, Tet McMillan is sitting as the wide receiver 22 in PPR on the week. So that is actually incorrect. I don't know why that hasn't updated yet. I was just about to tout how accurate our tools were, Kevin, and it's missing the 1 player. But I would like to point out Jake Ferguson, tight end 1 right now on the season. Pretty damn impressive after this week.
Yeah, Jake Ferguson's awesome. Right now, by the way, I will tell you, up to the minute, he's wide receiver 21, a sandwich between Chris Olave and Wan'Dale Robinson right now. So we're looking at what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12.8 fantasy points per game in PPR. You'll love to see it. He's a guy that is going to be getting the routes. He's a guy that Carolina actually has some upside in the fact that they're going to be in more of these kind of shootout games. We saw that a couple weeks ago where, Bryce Young had 50 pass attempts. That's an offense they're not, they can go to one side where they're completely run heavy. And obviously they have been the last couple weeks because they're riding the wave with Rico Dowdle. But on the other side of the token, they can, certainly put up a lot of pass volume. But the fact that he did that on limited, opportunity is awesome too. So that's why McMillan is just a locked in, wide receiver 2 option for your team.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love it. And then Bryce Young playing somewhat decently today. Is there anything to glean from that, Kevin, or is it still the same Bryce Young?
Hey, Bryce Young he's a streamer. Like you could play him in you're not playing him against the Jets next week. You're not playing against Buffalo. You're not playing against Green Bay. So you really have to pick and choose your spots. And there's not a lot of spots to play him in. If you were going to play him, it was going to be previous to Arizona, where he had 55 pass attempts. He struggled at New England. He had the game against Miami. He's only had 2 games where he's been a top 12 quarterback. But this is the rest of his schedule. At Jets, Buffalo, at Green Bay, New Orleans, you can think about starting him there if you need a streamer in week 10. At Atlanta, at San Francisco, home against the Rams, bye week in 14. At New Orleans, Tampa, Seattle, Tampa. There's not a matchup there where you're super comfortable outside of the home game against New Orleans.
Yep. Speaking of home games, we are in the home stretch, folks. Let's get on to the next one. Speaking of that, Kevin, your Green Bay Packers dismantling the Cincinnati Bengals 27-18.
I don't know about dismantling.
Well,
I don't know about dismantling.
Okay, I was trying to be kind. You're my buddy, but
I am the ultimate Packers nihilist. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's fair. I'm the ultimate Broncos nihilist, so it completely tracks. This wasn't exactly pretty for Green Bay, but they did get it done. And especially Josh Jacobs got it done, 18 for 93 and 2 touchdowns. But then he also adds 5 catches for 57 yards in the receiving game, Kevin. Kind of the star of the show on the Green Bay side. I mean, this shouldn't be super surprising out of Josh Jacobs, especially in this matchup.
No, it's not surprising, especially in the run game where he is like the engine of that, and almost to a fault because
Yep.
you look at some of these offenses, and obviously people want to, Green Bay is one of the best teams in football, but and it's funny because I was talking about wanting to make a comparison with the Arizona Cardinals. The Green Bay Packers are the Arizona Cardinals with a better publicist. Like Green Bay plays down to teams and then turns it on just randomly. But yeah, Jacobs is awesome. But the fact that he needs to be used so extensively in the passing game is almost a detriment to some of the wide receiver stuff. Cause like Romeo Doubs, 9 targets, 5 for 55. Like it's like whatever. And this is
sure
in a game where he has 9 targets in a game that you're in the whole way, you weren't up, in a positive game script where you could run the ball. You were getting pushed by the Bengals, but you still really could not do much on like 9 targets. Matthew Golden had some deep shots and got loose, 3 for 86 on 6 targets. Tucker Kraft had a touchdown, but still not like a super great day. Like that's what you're hoping for, touchdowns in this offense, like throughout, outside of like, well, no, really through everybody. You're in the receiving game. Golden hasn't had one, but Dobbs has had those 3 touchdowns. Wicks ended up getting hurt in this game where Malik Heath ended up coming in and take some of those routes from him. And then even Bo Melton shook off the cornerback tag, ended up getting a snap in this game at wide receiver. So with Green Bay banged up in the wide receivers, that could lead to maybe Bo Melton playing a little more wide receiver. We'll see how that goes. But Green Bay, they are just one of the most frustrating offenses in general. And then you add on the fantasy layer to it where you have, and I talked about this with Pat Fitzmaurice a few weeks ago on clock management, where you have Jacobs and you can't really start Love. Like Love was just okay today, but you're not starting him in fantasy. You're not starting really Golden outside of like deeper flex stuff.
Right.
He really hasn't shown enough to where you feel even okay about that. It's purely upside. Dobbs is a very high floor play that spiked, 2 weeks ago with the touchdowns. Kraft is boomer bust too, but he scored a touchdown. Yeah. Like it's really tough to roster any of these guys.
Yeah, I want to believe more in this offense. I've wanted to believe in Jordan Love for a long time. I really wanted to think the time he spent behind Aaron Rodgers was going to turn him into some sort of elite level quarterback. We see flashes of that in this offense, but at this point right now, the only thing I can really trust is Josh Jacobs. He's RB5 right now in PPR, right? And he's a game behind a lot of the guys he's competing with, but 20.9 PPR points per game, that actually puts him in third place amongst all running backs as far as points per game. So Josh Jacobs is a guy I'm excited about. On the Bengals side, though, with Joe Flacco, maybe a little bit more excitement about T. Higgins, definitely more excitement about Jamar Chase. What about Chase Brown in this new look offense, I guess, best way to put it?
Well, so the Bengals have historically been one of the best pass rail respected teams, and obviously that was with Burrow. But I think you're getting more of that now with Flacco, knowing that he has no problems throwing the ball. Zach Taylor has no problems kind of letting him rip. Yep. And then you're getting renewed kind of in Jamar Chase, you're starting him no matter what. But right. I think you can start T. Higgins. I think you're back to like he's a mid-range wide receiver 3, a really good flex option. Mike Gesicki got hurt. So if he is going to be out for any length of time, you can't touch any of those tight ends. So it's really that condenses the offense even more to Chase and Higgins, which is what you want. Do I think Chase Brown is back? Like, not really. Like, Chase Brown still 9 for 42, and then had 2 for 7 in the receiving game. So, like, it's still it's like it was. Obviously, Burrow to Flacco is a downgrade, but it's like the same general idea. It's like every sequel you've ever seen that is less than the original, where you have the Burrow Bengals, but look, it's Flacco and the Pips trying to do the old song and dance again. And it works to an extent because you still have Chase and Higgins, but it's like if Joe Burrow is Van Halen, Joe Flacco is Van Hagar.
Ooh, that's mean to Joe Flacco, though.
Like, it's fine, but it's nothing like what you had.
Well, I mean, this is a completely different show and a completely different topic, but Van Hagar was not fine.
No,
Sammy Hagar ruined Van Halen.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
No, look.
Flacco's gonna look. Not all's rosy with Joe Flacco either. Like, let's not pretend Joe Flacco is, infallible by any means. Like, he's gonna have his Jake Browning game. He's gonna, have that. Those are gonna come. But the good Joe Flacco is going to be like perfectly fine in like 2/3 of weeks. Like, it's almost Fitzpatrick-esque, Ryan Fitzpatrick, where when he came in, everything was great. And then slowly the wheels started going, the muffler fell off, the pets' heads are falling off.
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah. No.
Josh Dobbs was great for a couple weeks. And then everything started to fall apart.
Josh Dobbs in the International Space Station.
Where he belongs. He's an astronaut.
Let him astronaut up there.
You know what, Kevin, though? For our next game, Las Vegas against Tennessee, I wish I had been in the International Space Station and hadn't had to watch highlights of this. But we were at dinner, and it was really the only game Red Zone was targeting towards the end there. And it was ugly. Las Vegas wins this one 20-10. In a matchup that literally no one wanted, no one cared about. I don't think even Las Vegas and Tennessee fans cared who won this game. But it was played. What did you take away from this other than these teams are just as bad as we thought they were?
You know what I took away? I took away that this was the worst slate of late games that I can remember in a very long time. Between Packers, Bengals, this game, and then San Francisco, Tampa. Like, that was like that's an okay game, but it is not great. Look, I'm going to go in and watch this condensed game. No, that should be the other way around. That should be the Titans Raiders watching Jets and Broncos. That might be like, when people get sent to The Hague, they're going to have to go, watch that game. But yeah, I'm going to go watch that game so nobody else has to tomorrow, the condensed version. Trey Tucker, 5 for 70. Like, cool, I guess. Michael Mayer came in, no Brock Bowers, but Mayer came back. Strong role, 92% of snaps, 80% of routes, 5 for 50 and a touchdown. Remember, he's a second-round pick that really hasn't gotten the opportunity. Like, his rookie season, he was basically splitting that role with Austin Hooper. And then in comes Brock Bowers to steal all the thunder. And Mayer's kind of just sitting there with his hand down his pants, doesn't have anything to do. So it's not super great. But if Brock Bowers is going to be hurt and Michael Mayer is going to be seeing this role, he's a perfectly fine, like, tight end streamer. Like, I know Geno Smith is, like, abhorrent. Like, he offends every sensibility anybody has. But at least I guess he can get the ball. I mean, how long did they keep going with Geno Smith? It's only because Aiden O'Connell is hurt. They're not going to who
Kenny Pickett.
Oh God.
Now you just answered your own question.
No, there is a fourth option. Cam Miller, 2-time national champion at North Dakota State, sitting on the practice squad, proven winner,
All right.
Cam Miller.
Let's see it.
He won't get the shot, but
Somebody call Kyle Sloter out of retirement. Let's get that kid out there.
Fuck Kyle Sloter.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Let's move to the Tennessee side of this, Kevin. About as ugly. Cam Ward. I want to believe this kid's going to be good, but man,
he's bad.
He's bad. I think this is, and look, I'm not.
This
I
was
don't
the
want
game.
to.
The Raiders are a terrible defense. This was the game for Cam Ward to be like, I'm a pro. I'm actually like an okay quarterback. I have a game that I could build off of. We beat the Cardinals, but no, I'm gonna have 5.6 yards per attempt and throw it 38 times and do nothing for. I mean, it doesn't help that Cal Ridley played 4 snaps and was out of the game, but it does. It definitely says something when Van Jefferson is your leading receiver,
brother. This is Vince Young all over again.
He wishes. This is not. This could be Josh Rosen.
Ooh, I didn't want to go that bad. Like, at least I think Cam Ward has like maybe a couple like viable-ish seasons as a starter in the league before he's kind of jettisoned out, which is basically what we got out of Vince Young. What was it? 1.5 seasons Vince Young was a starter in Tennessee, and then he was pretty much out of the league.
Yeah, like Callahan's gone. I mean, He is on numbered weeks right now. He is so gone. And what are they going to do with an interim coach? Literally, what can you do? It's just going to be a lost season for Cam Ward.
Yep.
Who can they even get to be, or they go hire like Clint Kubiak or something? Like, who would be the hot head coaching?
I don't even know. It's probably going to
John Morton or like Clint Kubiak. It feels like.
It could be Cliff Kingsbury when he gets fired from Washington. Because mark my words, he will not be the OC in Washington next season.
He ain't going to fall. He's not going to fall upwards like that.
Okay, you don't think so, but how does Josh McDaniels keep getting jobs, man? Explain that one to me.
Because Patriots. That's literally that's the only team he could go to. That's literally the only team he could go to.
Does Bo Callahan
Josh McDaniels couldn't just go be the OC of like the Seattle Seahawks.
No. Does Callahan make it to week 10?
Let me look at their schedule. I mean, they're 1-5 right now. Tennessee has, let's see. So next week, home against New England, probably loss. At Indy, Chargers week 9. They're 1-8. They're firing him at the bye. They're firing him after the Chargers game. They're going interim during the bye. They're giving him whoever 2 weeks to figure something out. And then they got 3 home games in a row. Houston, Seattle, Jacksonville. Figure shit out. But
no,
I don't think he lasts past week 9.
No, I don't think he does either. And I want to point Lou's very correct here. Cliff Kingsbury, much like Lane Kiffin, just consistently falls up for no freaking reason, and it doesn't make sense.
At least Lane Kiffin's kind of built himself like a decent college.
He has now.
Yeah.
Sure. 100%. Well, Kevin, much like a few of the other matchups, I'm bored with this one. We're going to move on because, I mean, really from a fantasy perspective,
they're going to, you know what? They're going to hire Robert Saleh.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It would be
it's a bad decision, but
of course,
go for it.
It would be the most unsurprising thing to retread a head coach, especially a defensive one.
Yep.
Yeah, that I could totally see that.
But they called Wade Phillips and he's busy, so they're going to go with Robert Saleh. It just makes the most sense.
Look, Wade Phillips, for all of like the faults that he has, he figured it out very late that he doesn't need to take head coaching jobs. He could just be there. And there's nothing wrong with Wade Phillips, Dick LeBeau, like these lifers, coordinators, like the best coordinators in football. Obviously, Dick LeBeau is a head coach. I think he was a head coach.
No, Dick LeBeau's never been a head coach. No.
maybe he was an interim, but Wade Phillips was in Buffalo and Dallas. But he,
Oh,
for
LeBeau was an interim in Tennessee for a
yeah,
minute. It was after Jeff Fisher.
that was
That's
when I
right.
was gonna say because when Fisher
Yep,
got
that's
fired,
right.
yeah. I
Yep.
mean, but yeah, he obviously ended up going to, I believe, Pittsburgh right after that, and then he was
Yeah.
just a lifer there. But yeah, so it would not shock me. Yeah, Steve Spagnuolo, like Lou said, would not shock me if he got,
Nope.
because it's been over a decade now since he had the Giants job.
Yeah, I guess it has been about a decade. I still don't want to see it. Spagnuolo is another one of those guys who I think is a better coordinator and college level guy than he is NFL, but we'll see. I mean, Pete Carroll made it work his second go around in the NFL, right? I mean, his
I
first
mean,
was
yeah,
ugly.
yeah, he didn't really get a shot though. Like when he was there for with the Patriots, and then they got rid of him to get Parcells.
That's a fair point. He didn't really get a full shot.
Yeah.
But, all right, let's move on to this final matchup, Kevin. This one was actually somewhat exciting, and it featured my MVP. I don't care if he's yours or anyone else's. Baker Mayfield. The man's playing out of his mind. The Buccaneers beat the 49ers 30-19 at home. Mac Jones, let's start on the San Francisco side of this one. 27-39 for 347 yards ain't bad. No touchdowns, 2 picks, which was not great. McCaffrey was the real story here. 17 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. He adds on to that 7 catches for 57 yards on 8 targets. What else did you take from the San Francisco side of this game, Kevin?
That Mac Jones is going to be an awesome bridge in 2026. When he's going to start somewhere.
Yep.
But look, you think the Patriots could use a guy like Kendrick Bourne right now? Because I do certainly. Any of the other 31 teams certainly could. I mean, 142 yards in back-to-back weeks. And I know this banged up receiving core. Obviously, Juwan Jennings had almost 3 times as many broken ribs as he had fantasy points today. 5 broken ribs reportedly for Juwan Jennings, 1.7 fantasy points today. So kind of glean from that what you will. But yeah, obviously Christian McCaffrey, it's a dud week for most, players. It's a dud week, 12.7 fantasy points just in the receiving stuff. So that unfortunately takes his average down a whole point from 19.1 fantasy points per game just in receiving to 18.1 points in fantasy just receiving. So that's, still obviously awesome. Other than that, though, there isn't like too much outside of like the Bourne and McCaffrey. I'm just pulling everything back up because I had to go back to the McCaffrey stuff. Yeah, Jake Tongas is fine, but 6 for 58 and 7 targets. But George Kittle likely coming back next week. So it'd be nice to get some normalcy in this offense where you don't have to have MVS running 61% of the routes in a given week. But other than that, yeah, not too much to talk about there. And with Tampa's just so bad. I mean, Emeka Ibuka got hurt today. Hamstring injury. We'll see if that's going to be a long-term thing or it's going to be like a 1-week thing. But they're on like wide receiver 6 and 7 right now. Tez Johnson scored a touchdown. Cameron Johnson scored a touchdown. Sterling Shepard was plenty involved. It took Fred Warner getting hurt and a billion other guys getting hurt on their own roster that Kate Otten could actually produce 5 for 51 on 96% of routes. Rachaad White, perfectly fine, 17 for 65 and a touchdown, 3 for 21 through the air. So we're talking, what's that, 86 total yards and a touchdown. Can't beat that. Sean Tucker, 6 for 25 and a touchdown on limited work. That was nice too. Yeah, the role for Rachaad White's pretty awesome. You got to see what we're going to do, going forward. But like Rachaad White's a perfectly fine RB2 as long as you got him.
Yep. Oh, completely agree. And there's Sean Tucker, obviously. I raised my fist and I posted a profanity on Blue Sky when he scored that touchdown because
You Sky.
I need that to go to Rachaad White, damn it. But yeah, I mean, this offense is exactly what we thought it was. I think it's interesting though. Only 23 pass attempts for Baker Mayfield today. It's a lot lower than we expect to see out of this offense. But he's Baker, the Magic Maker. It's just kind of what he does. Victorious. This is a team where people are screaming that Baker Mayfield is possibly the NFL MVP. Would you go that far, Kevin?
I think he's in the discussion. I know that, like, if you look at some odd stuff, that you're going to see the usual suspects. You're going to see the Josh Allens. You're going to see the Pat Mahomes. But for my money, like, if I had to, based on the first 6 weeks of the season, I think at least Baker is in the top 2 or 3. For me, it's the top 2. It's Drake May and it's Baker Mayfield. I think what Drake May has done with a very limited roster for that team to be 4-2 is pretty wild. And then Baker, obviously he's been awesome. He was awesome last season. And now he's having to deal with all of this attrition at wide receiver, with obviously Godwin going down, Mike Evans, now Igbuka, and still producing. Like, that's obviously notable and worth something too. So I would say those two I think are at the top of the list for me. And then obviously it's very hard to do anything but a quarterback, but I mean, considering he's the entire offense, I think you have to throw CMC in there as well. And those, the top running back, like, they usually get like the 4th or 5th place votes and like MVP behind like all the top line quarterbacks. But I mean, Josh Allen's going to be in that conversation too. Mahomes is having a lot better season, considering he's their top rushing. Their leading rusher, I'm pretty sure, after 6 games too.
So here's a fun fact. I'm looking at top players on tools.optimusfantasy.com, which you should check out. Use the promo code OptimusFall, get 25% off your first 4 months. But I digress. Patrick Mahomes right now, this very second, after this Sunday night game, 148.8 fantasy points. He's averaging 24.8 points per game. That is tops in all of fantasy football, in PPR no less. Christian McCaffrey's at 148 points. He's 0.8 of a point behind him. Then it's Jonathan Taylor, Puka Nacua, JSN, Dak Prescott, and at number 7 is Baker Mayfield, and he is 0.2 of a point behind Dak Prescott in total fantasy points this season.
There you go.
And the reason I point this out is because we're having all of this talk about Baker Mayfield MVP. Just wait, give it 2 or 3 weeks, and everyone's drooling over Patrick Mahomes again. Mark my freaking words.
I mean, didn't we just have a whole Sunday Night Football where we drooled over Patrick Mahomes?
I didn't. It's what Patrick Mahomes does. Rico Dowdle, league winner, Kevin?
What are they going to do with Chuba Hubbard? I know you can't put Rico back in the... You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I don't know if I'd call him league winner. Certainly the week 5 and week 6 week winner, that 2 week stretch. I just don't know, like, what you can do with Chuba Hubbard once he comes back. You can't just send Chuba to 0. Like,
no.
That's why it's tough. Yeah, he could be a get you to the playoffs winner. Like, and there's going to be, some talk about that, and that's perfectly fine.
Sure.
But I don't know about league winner. Like, we have a lot of season to go where things can change pretty quickly. We could be a league winner starting next week, Mr. Rashee Rice, who gets to play for the first time. So that could start leading the Patrick Mahomes MVP train, when you obviously have Worthy, who changed the complexion of the offense. Now you have Rashee Rice coming back. You can set some of those ancillary guys to 0, like Juju Smith-Schuster, where now you can run your full offense how you wanted to in the training camp and during install. So, like, I'm excited to finally unearth all the Rashee Rice that I have on my 0-6 teams. I'm very excited. I'm just kidding. 1-5.
Right? Well, we waited, and we're just, here we go. It's Rashee Rice season. I'm excited about it. You
Let's
know what
go.
else I'm excited about, Kevin? Before we get out of here, I want to let everyone know. Head on over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. Check out these betting tools and check out all the stat tools. It's what I've been rolling through all night to pull up all the metrics and things we've been talking about. They are up to date. And unlike a lot of other sites, Kevin, I want to point this out. We're not going to pull our site stats overnight. You can look at them right now. Everything's up to date through the game tonight. So if you're looking to peruse all of those stats, 25% off your first 4 months with the promo code OptimusFall. And other than that, man, this has been a blast. Thanks for joining me tonight. Well, really, thanks for having me, I suppose, and forcing me to do all the hosting talking. But tomorrow, you can find Kevin on Clock Management at noon Eastern Standard Time right here on Optimus Fantasy. And then tomorrow night, Evan and I will be live with Waiver Wires at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard right here on Optimus Fantasy, Kevin.
Yeah, another solo show. Last week we did the running backs. We're going to talk about a lot of wide receivers and tight ends tomorrow. Probably, I don't know if I'm going to do mostly wide receivers because that's where a lot of like my questions lie with. Maybe I'll sprinkle one or two in, but it'll mostly be wide receivers talking about, guys like JSN and Lad McConkey and what we can do with a lot of those receivers going forward and looking through some of their production over the first 6 weeks of the season. So it should be some fun stuff.
We love it, man. Make sure you guys check out Clock Management. Again, that is at noon Eastern Standard Time right here on the Optimus Fantasy YouTube channel. And if you do miss it, make sure you check us out on Spotify or your favorite podcast platform. We are there as well. Make sure you check out those episodes after the fact. Folks, and speaking of which, if you are listening to the audio version of this show right now and you have questions for us, check out the show description. There's a link to our Discord channel. We are there to answer your questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a freaking week. And also make sure you are following us on all of our socials. There is a link tree in the show description as well. We're all over the place, but most notably find us optimusfantasynews.bsky.social, dropping news all day, every day to keep you up to date on what is going on around the league. Kevin, it's been a blast. Again, thanks for having me on your show. It's been wonderful. For Kevin Tompkins, I'm Nate Paul, folks. We'll see you next week.